The Mountain West is back. It is so much stuff going on right now in the Mountain West. So yeah, it's gonna be a fun-filled show today. What you think, Eli?
Man, the music always gets me going. I know it's Mountain West time, and there's always something fun to talk about and look forward to. So got another great show in store. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, absolutely. I want to give a quick shout out to start to talk about the Rising Coaches Equality and Inclusion Night that has been really successful all across college basketball across the country. We're excited about what's being done, and the teams have celebrated and embraced it. We've had all the way from junior college to Division II, Division III, and a number of Division Is across the high major landscape, mid major, low major, you name it. So it's been really cool. I think as of today, it's 120 teams that have participated, which is really cool to think that many teams have been a part of it. And yeah, so the whole point of the campaign, there's equal sign pins that have been sent out to every Division I school. They're wearing those at a specific game that fits their schedule, hopefully a home game, and kind of promote this equality and inclusion night. And just really the words are pretty open and blanket, kind of like Coaches versus Cancer in a sense. It allows for people to use that platform if there's a specific thing within equality and inclusion that they want to represent or speak on or have a voice about, then they can. But in general, just trying to promote more reminder of insight and mind for us to think about those things as equality and inclusion and be.
And not so good losses on this resume, and then being able to, I think, hold serve against Fresno, and then maybe stealing one against Boise or Wyoming. If they can steal one of those games, that'll kind of put the signature win on their team sheet and should go a pretty long way as far as at-large consideration is concerned. But if they lose both games against Boise State and Wyoming on the road, then it starts getting kind of tricky. And then you have to win at least a couple games in Vegas, I think. So
Right.
um, it's a tough situation. I think the other three teams should feel pretty comfortable so long as there aren't losses to teams that they shouldn't lose to. And I think that both all three of those teams have shown that they're capable of holding serve against who they should hold serve against. But uh, SCSU's they've got to buckle up and I think steal one of these games on the road. Doing it at Boise would be huge given Boise's metrics. Yeah, and Wyoming as well. So opportunities are there. I think it's a
Right.
clear cut four right now. SCSU being that last team in consideration. The others have a little bit more wiggle room though.
Yeah, we'll go upcoming schedule. We'll actually do that at the very end. We'll do that at the end. One thing I wanted to kind of mention within this tournament talk, I think sometimes in this league, which is a beautiful thing to be able to talk about multiple teams getting in, right? It's been a two-bid league here the last recent years, 3 or so years, maybe even 4 years that is. But I think the part that we almost lose sight of sometimes in talking about the tournament is there's still a conference championship race to be had here. And I think, you kind of alluded to that a little bit, but the race is so close. So we got Boise at 12-2, Wyoming at 11-2, San Diego State at 9-3, so only 3 losses, and Colorado State 11-4. So those four teams, Colorado State still plays Wyoming and Boise. So we'll go ahead and jump into that. So they play those two teams. So if Colorado State's able to find a way to win their last stretch of games, they're also going for that conference title, which everybody wants to get a Mountain West Conference title and championship. That's what you play for. And usually the Mountain West champion is going to go to the tournament. So that kind of comes as the secondary thing. San Diego State only with 3 losses. They also play Wyoming still. They also play Boise, who are both above them. So some big time games at the top of the conference are still left, which I think is really exciting. And for the conference tournament, for the conference championship, let alone you have the tournament in Vegas. It's going to be a whole nother conversation, but it's not a clear cut. In many years, it's been, hey, this team is probably going to win it at this point. But now you have where everybody plays everybody, and there's no for sure, especially even with two teams at the top, Wyoming and Boise, they've already split down the middle. So they're both competing to make sure they can secure and don't lose any more games so they can get their championship. So I think that's probably the most exciting part of the upcoming games. that is left. So that being said, we'll jump straight into our awards. We'll try to speed through these. It's a lot of fun. We've added some more awards because this league is so good. We want to make sure we can acknowledge as much as we can realistically. So I think we're up to 9 awards now. We're keeping it at 9. Excited about that. But team of the week this week, we chose San Diego State, who's won 5 in a row. They had some huge wins that felt like must wins. They all feel like must wins for them right now, but they did so in a dominant fashion. And I think this offense is starting to get contributions from multiple guys. We'll talk a little bit about that. But defensively, we know how good they've been. So to get 2 almost 20-point or 20-point-ish wins, really impressive by San Diego State against Fresno and Utah State, who were both in the conversation right there with them to being in the tournament. And they're a big reason why those guys are not probably in that conversation, because they were able to take care of business. So talk maybe 30, 60 seconds on them, and we'll go to the next award.
Yeah, you mentioned about beating these teams handily. I think that's one of the important aspects here, is that we've seen with the NCAA's metrics, with the net rating in particular, of just how important it is to handle your business. And if you can do so in a double-digit fashion or win by 20, that helps out the efficiency numbers, which is such a big deal as far as seeding and selection is concerned. So I think to have won now the last 4 games by double digits and to beat the 2 toughest teams out of the last 4 in Utah State and Fresno State by a combined, I think, 36 points, that's why SDSU has seen such a surge in their efficiency rating. So they were outside the top 40 in KenPom before those last 2 games, and by winning both of those by a pretty wide margin, now they're at 23rd at the time of this recording. So you get into that 20 range, and a lot of teams, I want to say in the top 20, have never – I don't think a top 20 KenPom team has ever missed the NCAA tournament, and SDSU is knocking on the door right now. So that's a really big deal to handle these games the way that they have.
Yeah, we'll stay in San Diego with San Diego State, and we'll go next with the 6th man of the week. Monster performance, a team that has struggled to score at times, had a 6-point game in the first game of the week, and the second game of the week had a 20-point game of the week. So I'll let you talk about the 6th man of the week from San Diego State.
Yeah, so Chad Baker's our 6th man of the week, and he's had some good contributions off the bench of late for this team, and transferring over from Duquesne, Swingman's had a lot of potential, and seeing him fit in as kind of a 3-level scorer who also plays very well defensively, and he showed up, and he's played well of late and brought 20 points off the bench, as Brian mentioned, against Fresno State, hit 4 3-pointers. Clearly, he's got a lot of talent and a lot of offensive capability. I think there's been a little bit of ups and downs here and there, but to respond the way he has and give SDSU kind of that second element, that second scoring element, it can't all be Matt Bradley, and it's not always going to be all Matt Bradley. He's going to need some help, and I think these recent contributions by Chad Baker has been a really big deal as far as getting that secondary or I guess tertiary score on this team to allow SDSU just a bit more offensive capability, because they've struggled to score, but of late it's been better in that category. Oh, we got you on mute.
Sorry, trying to make sure I don't interrupt. Yeah, so much of this team has left in the last 2 years. Some of the pillars has been in San Diego State for a long time. Really good, elite level program. They've been the first class, top shelf team of this conference for the recent years. So they are starting to play some of their best basketball, winning 5 in a row. So I think they're dangerous. Obviously, the game tomorrow night is going to be a huge one, because it was kind of a rubber football match the first time between Boise State and San Diego State. I think both teams' offenses, as they're coached by elite level coaches, get better over time, and the players start to find their niches and their grooves over time. So excited about what this team is doing. I think they are a tournament team. I think now that they're getting more contributions offensively, they're dangerous come the tournament time. And to be honest, they kind of always play some of their best ball at this time of year. They have some magic in San Diego. They know what they're doing. Let's go next to let's go Underclassmen of the week. I think this one is the most significant win of the week. Started the week. They didn't end the week great, but this gentleman played really well. the entire week and has played really well all season. Hasn't really gotten a lot of recognition because his backcourt teammate, gets more of it. But this underclassman, definitely a big reason why they were able to get that top 25 win against Wyoming, New Mexico's Mashburn.
Yeah, Jamal Mashburn's played exceptional of late. He's had at least 17 points in each of his last 5 games. Also bringing it on the defensive end as well and distributing really nicely alongside Jalen House. And that's what makes this offense so dangerous is they've got multiple distributors. They've got guys who can hit on offense. And it's a really good offensive team despite kind of their challenges on the defensive side. So Mashburn has been pretty instrumental of late of allowing New Mexico to be competitive in some of these tougher games. And obviously the win over Wyoming was huge. They've given CSU a couple scares. Letdown game against San Jose State, of course, but Mashburn's really stepped up as far as his production. And to be doing it as a sophomore, transferring over from Minnesota with Richard Pitino, I think he's found really good footing within this team and found a really good role next to one of the best guards in this conference in Jalen House. So even though this team is towards the bottom of the standings, House and Mashburn's about as good as it gets as far as a backcourt duo in this conference.
Yes, they absolutely are. We will go next to, and a big win for them. Again, just hasn't been able to be quite consistent, but they are the 4th leading scoring team in the conference, so we know they are dangerously capable. We'll go defender of the week next. Really good player, as we recognize him and one of his teammates on the show as players of the week earlier in conference play. We didn't get the graphic out to celebrate to the world. We weren't quite on that level yet, but Mr. Kejab out of Boise State, versatile defender, and sometimes guards 1 through 5, but such the hard hat toughness guy for them, does a ton of their dirty work, can really score in a variety of ways as well, and he's willed them to win. I know we'll talk about one of his teammates as well, who's had some big-time shots and clutch shots and moments, but under the radar, Kejab has really been a strong force for them as far as leadership, as far as just kind of gritty plays, taking charges, getting to the free throw line, kind of has a back you down element to his game, similar to Maldonado of Wyoming. The Oregon transfer is just a really talented winner that's kind of defines to me the competitive edge of this team. He is that. So defender of the week goes to 2-0 Boise State and Mr. Kejab.
Yeah, I think Kejab's probably one of the least appreciated players in this conference. I think if you take any one player off of his team and talk about the impact there, I think Kejab has to be at the top of the list because he does so much for Boise, and a lot of it that doesn't even show up in the box score. But you mentioned his ability to defend 1 through 5, and I think that defensive versatility is so important because he can pick up, and sometimes he even brings the ball up the floor on offense, but he can pick up the top guards. He can defend in the post, defend on the wings, and does a lot for this team. And I think coming over as an Oregon transfer, a lot of talent. He didn't have much production at Oregon and didn't really play a whole lot, but Boise's been a perfect spot for him, and he's gotten better during his time at Boise, just kind of incrementally finding his role, finding his abilities within this Boise team. And Kejab is such an important player, and I know Marcus Shaver will talk about him more, and he's hit the big shots, and Tyson Dagenhart's been big of late. Armouche is a presence inside, but Kejab is just so versatile and brings so much to this team, and I think that's what makes Boise so dangerous overall.
Yeah, and watching them, I was really, really fortunate and blessed to be able to call the game Wyoming versus Boise at Wyoming and was able to watch the game Wyoming at Boise. And in that particular matchup, where you talk about the 2 top teams in the conference, record standing wise, I mean, Kejab was the best player for Boise both times. Really, really tough competitor. Talking to Coach Rice earlier in the season on this show, I mean, he just talked about how much he loves him as a person, how tremendous of a young man he is, and how much he's going to be missed because of all the things he does, like you said. So big shout outs to Kejab. I got to meet him in the hallway too. He's a pretty impressive dude. So shout out to the young man. Keep up the great work. We will go next to, drum roll please, we'll go out to Vegas for the hard hat player of the week. Texas guy. I haven't really had to say that today yet, but we got to give our shout outs to our Texas guys. Royce, I don't know you personally, but I've watched you play a lot back in the grassroots when I was a Division I college coach myself, and yeah, I've always had an appreciation for your game and the dirty work that you do. Extreme athlete, was at Texas, transferred over to UNLV and averaged a double double in two huge wins that they had to have just for themselves to kind of get going. And they've played great ball, and their staff deserves a ton of credit for how they've been able to get UNLV going. And we'll talk about that next. But yeah, Royce Ham has done a lot of the dirty work, done a great job on the glass, finding ways to score as well to kind of complement Mr. Hamilton, who's one of the best scorers in the country. So yeah, he is our hard hat player of the week. I'm kind of stealing the mic from you on this one, so we'll pass it to the very next one and go breakout player. Again, shout out to Royce Ham, averaged about 10 and 10 in this week of wins. Breakout player, I'll pass it to Eli Boettger. From Texas as well. We got a couple Texas guys back to back. University of Texas transfer also with Wyoming, had a big 23-point game. I think he had a 16-point game, and they had two games against San Jose State. Not the best competition within the league. However, he performed really well. And when he plays this way, with the way that those two guards can play, I mean, people talk about New Mexico's backcourt, but Nevada has the most dangerous backcourt in the conference, in my humble opinion. I mean, you talk about the newcomer of the year last year and the player of the week this week. He did get player of the week by the conference, so let's acknowledge Grant Sherfield, who's another Texas guy. We're on a roll right now, Eli. We're on a roll. Grant Sherfield, player of the week by the conference, had a tremendous week of, I think, 23 points and 9 assists a game, played at an elite level. Kind of a man amongst boys, let's be honest. San Jose State's not quite there yet with their talent level, so I'm not surprised he dominated. But when Cambridge, who got an award from us last week for breakout performance, he averaged some crazy numbers, can put up 40 in a game, similar to Bryce Hamilton. And then you have Sherfield. When Will Baker can play at an elite level, this team is a dangerous team as well. So talk a little bit about Will.
Yeah, it was an impressive week for Will Baker, and I feel like this team is at their best when he is efficient with the basketball. And I just looked up his splits. He's shooting 62% from the field in Nevada wins this year and 50% in losses. So his efficiency, when it's up and it's on par with what we expect out of him being a Texas transfer and a high talent guy, stretching the floor, he does that quite a bit. I think that's what makes Nevada all the more dangerous, because we know about Sherfield, we know about Cambridge and what they bring to the floor. Probably good for 40 points a night, if not more. But when they get that third guy involved, whether it's Trey Coleman, whether it's Will Baker in this circumstance, I think that's what makes Nevada dangerous. And that's why they're still not a team that you can count out for winning a game or two in Vegas, because they've got that talent level. But really great week for Will Baker. Another great week for Royce Ham. Texas transfers have been showing up of late.
Yeah, let's go.
And, yeah, there we go. And yeah, it's fascinating to watch these two Nevada schools, Nevada and UNLV, because they've sure had their ebbs and flows this year, but they have the capability to play as well as the top four teams in this league. And depending on where they're at as far as momentum, as far as health, and just their chemistry heading into Vegas, would not be surprised to see either of these teams, if not both, win a game in the tournament, just based on their talent level, based on what they've been able to do at their very best this season.
Yep, I would agree. Speaking of very best, we have our player of the week. Again, another young man we acknowledged early in our show. I think maybe the first episode wasn't quite at the graphic level that we are now to kind of get those out to celebrate those guys. But Mr. Clutch, still in first place, Boise State. We got to go with Mr. Clutch for player of the week. He averaged 20 points a game, had two 20-point performances, very efficient 20-point performances. And I think he was known early on, had an 0 for 10 game, but then hit the game-winning shot more or less in that game, the clutch shot that they needed. Hadn't necessarily had all the performances, just had the big moments. But now he's putting the performances with those big moments for his resume and starting to play some great ball. And Coach Rice also talked about this when we met with him. He felt like their ceiling offensively was they still had room to get to it. And I think this young man's a big part of it.
Yeah, Marcus Shaver's been huge for this team, and he's hit so many clutch baskets in late situations that's allowed Boise to go from a team that I don't really know where this team was headed when they were 3-4 to start the year with losses to Cal State Bakersfield and UC Irvine and Bonaventure. It's been up and down, St. Louis, but Shaver's really taken on the reins of this offense, and we know that he's hit some clutch baskets for this team, but now he's putting together full 40-minute performances and doing a great job with this offense. And he's played 33 plus minutes in each of the last 8 games, I believe. So he's played a lot. He's done a lot with it. And this past week had a 40 combined points on just 20 field goal attempts. So he's averaging 2 points a shot right now from the field, and also does a lot of great things from the defensive side. Loves to play passing lanes. He's got this great quickness about him. And Boise's dangerous, and Shaver's right at the top of it. Portland transfer. He's come over and just brought a ton of production with him. So it's been fun to watch Shaver and his development. Obviously talking to Rice and assistant Ray J. Barsh about his development, and he's stepping up. And I know he's going to hit some clutch shots and take some clutch shots. And it's been fun to follow this team and Shaver in particular.
Yeah, we picked up a new addition for the show today.
There we go.
Fresh from a nap, no school today. Apparently, no school, President's Day, whatever day it is. But yes, so we haven't talked about breakthrough performance. So let me get our breakout player of the week and our breakout player of the week. First win in conference play in the Mountain West. Didn't know if it was going to happen with this top-loaded, heavy. Now let's say this. San Jose State had more wins going into conference than they've had, I think, in a long, long time, and had 7 wins going into conference, but just hadn't been able to start conference play very well. And then you kind of get into that rut where you're going through the dog days of the schedule and all the tough teams. And so, Mr. Moore had a triple-double. He is our breakout player of the week. And it's funny because here in New Mexico's week, they start out on this extreme high, and they beat a top 25 team, and then it just kind of shows the highs and lows of that team. And again, no disrespect or knock to San Jose State, but there's a huge difference between the top 25 and a team that hasn't won, and it does show the depth of this conference. So let's talk about the breakout player of the week.
Yeah, a huge win for San Jose State to beat a New Mexico team that they've actually had their number against these last 3 or 4 years, which is kind of a fascinating understory in this conference of late. But Omari Moore has been awesome, and he's going to make some good money playing professional ball here in a year or two. He does a lot as a 6'6" swingman for this team. He's really efficient from the field, which is something that San Jose State's lacked in recent years. And he does a great job distributing. And he's top 60 nationally in both assist rate and also three-point percentage. And there aren't many players, let alone 6'6" guys, who are able to match that, still being a swingman but being so efficient for this team. And it's been fun to watch his development and watch him grow as a player on this team and kind of take over the reins of this offense. And to record a triple-double, it's a big deal for anyone. It's a huge deal for someone from San Jose State. So you have to give shouts to Omari Moore and what he's been doing with this.
And a triple-double in a win, in a win.
Yes.
Desperately needed. They did not want to go over in conference, and they still have enough firepower to get another win at some point for sure. But I'll say this. I know you say swingman, but I think now he's primarily being the point guard for them. He's played point most of the way, has the versatility to play off the ball, but that's a position that he's played now is at the one. And Coach Miles talked about this. I was able to broadcast their game as well, and he talked about, just he has the talent when he's aggressive the entire game is when we're at our best. And some people don't necessarily – he hasn't maybe had that same role, so harder to step into a role like that sometimes on a team that doesn't have a ton of firepower around you. But he is every bit of a high-level player for this conference, and excited for him to get some recognition there. I think the only one we left out is the trending team of the week, which the trending team of the week is UNLV. So let's talk about specifically UNLV as our trending up team of the week.
Yeah, I mean, to sweep Colorado State, that's a huge deal for this team, and to do it in the fashion that they did, winning by 21, winning by 14. Hamilton dropped 45 in the first one, I believe. Had a crazy performance in the first game. Way more balanced this time around as far as UNLV's offense. Hamilton still had 20, but a lot more contributions from other guys. And UNLV is dangerous. And I think this team's had a lot of talent in the past, and there's been a star on their roster. They've had Shakur Juiston, they've had Brandon McCoy, obviously Bryce Hamilton now. But I think having that secondary guy is so important. And I hammer this point home so often with teams in this league, because there are so many stars, but the teams that have that second or third scorer, second or third defender as well, is so important as far as winning games on a consistent basis. And that's why I think guys like Royce Ham, Mike Nuga, Jordan McCabe, who's been a good table setter, even Donovan Williams, some of those guys and their contributions is what's going to make or break UNLV's season. I still think they're capable of winning some games at the Mountain West tournament, and obviously doing it on their home floor as always. So there's some comfortability there. But Hamilton's always going to be one of the best players on the floor, no matter who they're playing. And if they can get good performances from the supporting cast, there's no reason why they can't knock off one of these top four teams. So UNLV is a fun watch. They've been kind of floundering around 500 these last handful of years, but there's new energy with Kevin Kruger in charge, Bryce Hamilton still being there as the star, and would not be surprised with UNLV making some noise here in these next few weeks.
Yeah, shout out to Kevin Kruger. Shout out to their staff, Carlin Hartman, Brent Chappelle. He's brought in a new staff. They're new. He's also, pretty much the whole team is brand new. So kind of another one of those teams, and when you're well coached, you're going to continue to play your best ball at the right time. And as you've said many times, we both said it, March is going to be very interesting in this conference tournament because there are some unique matchups. There is firepower on all sides, and every year there's a team that's not necessarily finished well in the standings that has played well at the end of the year that finds a way to kind of get a big win in the conference tournament. So we look forward to that. Let's talk about the upcoming games because we have some big ones upcoming, starting with tomorrow's games, which is San Diego State, Boise is the game on the calendar. It is 3 losses on the year to 2 losses on the year, basically tied for first and then third place, 1 game or 1.5 games behind, whatever it may be. Big time matchup. Last time it was a football score. Let's talk about this heavyweight 2 tournament team type matchup.
Yeah, there could be a lot of shuffling with the top 4 in the conference over these next few days. Starting off with San Diego State going to Boise State, and it was such a slugfest the first time these 2 teams played. It was crazy because in the second half, Boise and San Diego State essentially alternated their scoring runs. And so I believe it was San Diego State who held Boise scoreless about the first 10 minutes of the second half, and then it was reversed for the final 10 minutes of the second half. I don't think it's going to be this low scoring. It almost is impossible to be this low scoring again as it was in the first matchup, but both teams are kind of turning the corner as far as offense is concerned. I think SDSU is getting a lot better in that regard. They've had some 70-plus point performances of late. They're scoring the basketball a lot better than they were, and I think a lot of that has to do with the supporting cast stepping up. Guys like Chad Baker, Trey Pulliam, in particular, Lamont Butler as well. But this is about as big of a game as it gets for Boise of late to host SDSU, which is more or less had their number of late prior to the start of this season. And SDSU's kind of got their backs against the wall. Being able to steal this game or heading up to Laramie at Wyoming shortly after, those are going to probably make or break SDSU's at-large chances. So if it isn't a Boise win on Tuesday, then it's probably going to have to be a win at Wyoming to get those signature wins on the resume. So big moment for SDSU. They've been in these types of spots before. They've got the best defense in the country. It's just a matter of putting the ball in the hoop enough times to get the job done. I really think it's as simple as that.
Yeah, there's a lot of truth to that because when they score, we know what their defense is capable of. So they've won 5 in a row. Boise's run 2 in a row. 2 of the best programs year in and year out in this league. I mean, this is the blue bloods of the Mountain West going head to head, and it's going to be a great one. So Tuesday night, definitely stay tuned to that. Let's talk about Boise's schedule before we leave. Talking about kind of upcoming games and matchups. Let's talk about Boise's schedule. They have probably not the hardest schedule left, but they do play some super significant games. They play San Diego State at home. It's obviously a huge one for them. They play a dangerous, trending UNLV team on the road. So that's kind of one of those games where they've done it to Colorado State. They have the capability. So that's a big one. They play Nevada at home. Again, we've talked about their backcourt and how they're playing some great basketball right now. They've won 3 in a row. And then they end the year going to Colorado State. So some significant games left for Boise, leading the conference in wins, 12-2. Just going to be great to see kind of how they finish. And they should be a tournament team no matter how they finish, to be honest, based on how they played. But they want to get a conference championship. They want to make a run in the tournament. Leon Rice has done such a great job consistently. He's been as consistent as any program in the Mountain West. So excited to see how they finish. The big rival matchup is going down in Fort Collins Wednesday, and I will be front row, media row, ready for all the action and all the smoke. This is a matchup where they went to overtime last time they played in Wyoming. Both leading scorer, big men, fouled out of the game on offensive fouls. There was a huge some free throws and clutch plays missed by CSU that kind of helped leave the door open for Wyoming, and Wyoming was able to capitalize. Both these teams have been the only 2 teams in the conference that have been ranked in the top 25 this season. 2 elite offenses, 2 elite coaches. I mean, you talk about the best probably scoring duos in the conference as far as guard and bigs, right? Guard and bigs, you have Isaiah Stevens and Maldonado. Then you have David Roddy and Graham Ike. So this is going to be, as they say on television, get your popcorn ready, right? This is one of those games. I don't think it's going to be a grind type of game. I think that favors Wyoming a little bit more. CSU's been selling out every game, and it's another sellout crowd. So it'll be fast-paced, high intensity. There's some rivals. I think the part that's so unique about this game is CSU, the only Colorado player that I'm aware of, and I could be wrong on this, so somebody fact check and correct me, but Thistlewood, I think, is the only Colorado player that's in the rotation that plays is from Colorado. Meanwhile, for Wyoming, the highest scoring duo in the country are both from Colorado. So they're coming back to their home state against now rival school. I talked to Maldonado about it, and he said it was Eustace that was there when he was playing. He was coming out. So it wasn't Coach Medev was not the coach then. So there's no blood necessarily between that, but just CSU not recruiting him. He definitely has some motivation from that. Graham Ike from the Denver area, outside of the Denver area. He also did not get recruited by CSU. So, it's going to be interesting to see. And obviously, both teams have some urgency. CSU's urgency is get one more big win, one more quad one win before this whole thing is over, and you have to rely on the tournament. You know what I mean? So they play Boise left at home, and they play Wyoming left at home. So naturally, they want to compete for a conference championship. They were the preseason favorite. They still can get it done. I know they're upset and disappointed about the UNLV loss. That's natural. They didn't expect that. But they do have an opportunity to kind of right the ship and get it turned back the way that they'd like to. But it starts Wednesday night with this huge rivalry matchup. And then they also have a Utah State game in between. So they have 3 games left. They want to go 3-0. Now, on the flip side, Wyoming knows Boise plays. They'll know the outcome of the San Diego State-Boise game going in. And not that they're keeping track, of course, but not that that's going to determine that they're going to play harder. But they're going to know, okay, do we have a chance to have sole possession of first place, right, for a little bit? Or are we still chasing Boise to make sure we're still tied? Because those 2 teams have already played. So this is as big a heavyweight matchup as you can get. Like I said, must-see TV. Wyoming is not traditionally one of the powers in this league, and CSU's had moments, but both of these teams have been the most nationally talked about teams because they've been both nationally ranked. So it'll be a big time one.
Yeah, it's exciting for the top four teams to play against each other in these first couple of days of the week, and I think border war, it's rivalry game. It's for CSU and Wyoming. It's both of these programs' biggest games in quite some time. And CSU had that run near the tournament when it was Gian Clavel and Emmanuel Mogbo who were there. Wyoming's obviously played in the NCAA tournament, I believe in 2015, but since then, this is about as big as it gets for both of these programs. And Boise and SDSU, they've played in big ones. But the thing that stands out to me is one of my last final notes here with SDSU is that given how this works out with their schedule, if SDSU is able to go to Boise and get a win, which I think they're certainly capable of doing, that will put SDSU at 10-3 overall in conference play. That would put Boise at 12-3 in conference play. So they'd be tied in the loss column. And then if Wyoming drops their matchup to Colorado State, which is that's a road game for Wyoming, it's going to be a ruckus environment. I could definitely see that happening as well. Then we've got Boise, Wyoming, and SDSU all tied in the loss column with just a couple weeks to play, and Wyoming just a game back with probably the most wins in the league at that point. Colorado State with most likely the 11 or 12 wins at that point. So the seeding situations are crazy, and given Boise and Wyoming being the breakout teams in this conference, we could look up a week from now and it could be SDSU and Colorado State at the top of the league as far as standings are concerned. So there's a lot of scenarios and different outcomes that we could see over these next few weeks, but it is getting busy at the top. Still plenty of games to be played for these top four teams, and there is a lot on the line as far as Mountain West tournament seeding and matchups for the tournament and at-large consideration. And just there's a lot going on here as far as metrics are concerned and scenarios are concerned. So it's going to be a lot of fun to watch. Huge games coming up.
Yeah, huge games coming up. I don't know if we left anything significant off that we wanted to talk about. I don't think we talked about Wyoming's last stretch. We talked about CSU. We talked about Boise. We talked about San Diego State's. Wyoming's final stretch, 4-game stretch. They go to Colorado State, obviously a huge one. They have Nevada at home. We've talked about how dangerous that team is, of course. San Diego State, they also have at home. UNLV, they go to Vegas, and then they have one last home game against Fresno State. So they have 5 left, the most games left to play. And they've played, all these teams in the Mountain West, it feels like it's been an NBA schedule because there's so many Monday, Tuesday games that have never usually been played. Traditionally in the Mountain West, there's usually one. Like tomorrow's Tuesday slate, I think there's 3 games, and so teams are playing 3 games in a week, and that's also what hurts teams like, I know we mentioned New Mexico earlier, and they're getting a lot of talk in this episode, but they play Tuesday, they played Wyoming, then they played CSU. I believe it might have been, I don't know, somewhere toward the end of the week, and then they played San Jose after that. So they played 3 games in that week. So a lot of teams have had to play 3 games in a week, which is also making it tricky. And then they come back and play 2 games the next week. So you got travel, which is not easy in this league. So anyway, we can talk all day about this league, but I think we know where it stands. Exciting week ahead, kind of closing things out. I don't have any predictions. I'm just kind of in the mode of like, I want to see it. I do think there's some significant team matchups, individual matchups, coaching matchups, and then you just never know when a UNLV that's not at the top of the ranks right now, or Nevada, or New Mexico, or Utah State can jump in and still. I think everybody has a loss against a team that's not at the top outside of, I don't know Boise's other loss. I'm drawing a blank. They lost to Wyoming. Boise lost to CSU.
Wyoming and CSU, yeah.
Boise's the only one that so far has not lost to a team that's not in the top 4. Mm-hmm. So it'll be interesting to see how it plays out. Excited for some more big-time Mountain West basketball. This league looks like it's getting 4 teams in, so we'll start to know more and more as this thing unfolds. But a great job, as always, by Eli. Heat Check CBB. If you don't know, Eli used to be like Mr. Mountain West. That's kind of why he's here. He's no longer Mr. Mountain West. He's Mr. Heat Check. He does the nation. But yes, we're so glad to have Eli with his expertise. And excited. Stay tuned, and we'll be back next week.